All right, I'm back with another recent reads and a few new books here. Much like the last video, I have not read all that much in the past month. Unfortunately, I have some weird issue where I can't sleep. I'm averaging like 2 or 3 hours a night for months now. So it is a struggle to read or even to be motivated to read. But I have enjoyed like 50% of what I read recently. It also hasn't been a great read a month, but I'm currently on a trilogy, which I'm going to talk about. That's not too bad. But first up, this was just a random pick off the bookshelf, C.L. Moore's Judgment Night, which is basically a novel length, and then there's 4 short stories with it. This one took me by surprise because I did not really enjoy it that much, and I've loved everything I've read by her previously. The Jarell Jory stuff, loved it. Northwest Smith, loved it. The Best of C.L. Moore, one of the best things I've ever read. So this is another of her collections, but just not as strong, nowhere near as strong as the other stuff. There's a short story in here called Paradise Street. It's kind of like a Wild West story on a frontier planet where you know, various prospectors and people who are kind of making their own living kind of find these planets and before the rest of humanity gets there and settles down. So the perspective is from this guy named Morgan, who I think he's the one that originally discovered this habitable planet, and he's been farming it for materials and stuff and just selling it to various people back home. I think, basically, to other companies or people interested in other solar systems. But this planet has recently been opened up for colonization, and he's really struggling to come to terms with yet another planet that he's lived a solitary life on for years now, kind of becoming overpopulated, and there's rules and regulations, and he can't make as much money as he used to. And he gets into a confrontation with this group of, I guess, criminals who aren't going to give him as much money as he expected, and he ends up having to work for them, kind of thing, and then it all goes south. It was an okay story. The rest, not so much. Judgment Night, though, the novel-length story in here is about a human empire struggling to maintain that empire. Humanity in this world is kind of across all sorts of different planets. I get the feeling various human empires have risen and fallen over the years, but the seat of government and the seat of the empire has always been held on this one planet, the name of which I don't remember now. But our main character is Julie, who's kind of like the emperor's daughter, who ends up getting kidnapped by this other faction that's waging war on the empire, and it's basically up to her to avoid this empire falling into the hands of a different human group. But the neat thing is, this planet that is the seat of government has these gods, which are only evidenced by the fact that there's these weird temples and these voices that speak from them, and various species over the millennia or millions of years have had galactic-wide governments, or empires, but always basically have run them from this planet where they have the help of these enigmatic gods, kind of thing. And there's a hint that the gods are growing weary of humanity, and they really don't mind watching these two human empires fight, and it's not the end of the world to them if humanity in general kind of collapses after this. And Julie kind of becomes aware of this. There's a the other main character is a high-ranking guy from the other faction, and they somewhat fall in love but are also mortal enemies. But it just kind of all fell flat. Great ideas, but not that interesting a story. The main takeaway was the moon of this planet is kind of like a pleasure paradise where people go to live out their wildest fantasies. You go into a room and you program it to do whatever you want, and you live as whoever you want, wherever you want, kind of thing. It was interesting, kind of before its time. It felt like, I think this story's from 54. That was pretty cool. pretty early depiction of 1952, pretty early depiction of virtual realities and stuff, and it was neat, but the story in general just kind of fell flat for me. So that was disappointing because I love C.L. Moore. I would not recommend starting with this. If you're gonna check out C.L. Moore, check out her Best Of, which is what I started with and absolutely fell in love with her. Then I read The Best of Frederick Brown, which I'm not going to talk about because I'll be doing a video with Richard and Ira quite soon. It'll be our third collaborative talking about a Best Of. It was decent. I enjoyed some, didn't care for others, but I'll save my thoughts for later on. I also read a short story from Lightspeed magazine or something, I think. I can't remember now, but it was The Long Chase by Geoffrey Landiss, which I think I read. Yeah, it was originally published in Asimov magazine 2002, I believe. It was only 4,000 words. Somebody posted it in a Facebook group and said it was like Alistair Reynolds-ish, so I gave it a read just before doing this video, and it was good. It was Alistair Reynolds-ish. It's about a human consciousness that was long ago turned into an AI and went out to the asteroid belt to mine and make a living that way. But over the years, like lots of people have uploaded their consciousness into a sort of robotic entity to work. But over the years, these minds have started merging, and now there's kind of a collective that's kind of forcing all these digital minds to coalesce into one. So there's a war, and all of this is before the story takes place. This is just backstory. There's a war where the independent minds lose, and the war is over now, and there's this one independent mind that's hiding out in the Oort cloud and decides to dive for the sun over the course of 200 years and then flee the system, which is what she does. But then it turns out she's being followed, and she can't believe the collective is, you know, actually sending out someone to pursue just this one single entity. So she comes up with a plan that unfolds over a couple hundred years, maybe not that much. It might actually only be a couple decades. I just read it, I can't remember. But she's fleeing to another nearby sun, and she'll try slingshotting around that to lose this pursuer, but it's not gonna work. Every time she wakes up from a, you know, multi-year sleep, this other entity is closer and closer. So she tries something drastic, and it doesn't work, and she fails, and she's potentially subsumed by this collective consciousness. But right at the end, there's a twist, which was set up earlier in the story. Made me smile. I quite enjoyed it. I've never read anything else by Geoffrey Landiss. Actually, I may have in one of the hard SF collections I have, but I do have this, which I picked up like a year ago, and this is a collection of his short stories. I believe he was a NASA physicist and Hugo winner, I believe, for short stories or something. I really should know more about him, and I really need to give him a try because it was a great story and super short. It was like 15-20 minute read. And what I've been reading the last couple weeks is this trilogy by Gary Gibson, the Shoal Sequence, which, forgive the crazy annotations you're going to see. I thought I might make a video like a few I've done recently, where I was going to lay out the world building and then the plot with pictures and everything, but it's probably not going to happen for this one. But I could always go back and easily pick up the story and do that if I wanted to. But anyway, this is an interesting space opera. I've never really heard anybody talk about Gary Gibson, but in the past I have read 2 of his standalones, and we're talking 5, 6, 7 years ago now, so I don't remember anything about them. I read Angel Stations, which I really enjoyed, which I believe was about humanity using these leftover transportation portals from some other species. That was good. It involved some great world building with a great alien culture. And Final Days, which involved, I think, various different timelines and time traveling. That was really good too. I remember the start of this has like humans probing like a few billion years into the future in this weird, eerie landscape. Very cool. But again, I really don't remember much about either of them because it's been way too long. So, again, this was just a random pick. I stared at my shelf. I thought, let's give the first in this series a try, and if I like it, I'll read the rest. So let's talk about the world building. It is, I think, the 2200s. Humanity is spread out across like a 30 light year wide bubble that they have been allotted by the shoal, which is the species that is dominant in the galaxy, as far as anyone knows. They're the only species with light speed, and they maintain a monopoly on it. When they come across an intelligent species that they can trade with or benefit from somehow, they basically make a deal. We will transport you to other planets so you can set up colonies, but only within this certain area that you're allotted. We'll transport you there with our own FTL back and forth, but you don't get FTL. But you follow our rules, and we will do this for you. We will help you progress. So humanity's come into contact with them. They have their 30 light year bubble, and they're next to a few other species. And how it works is the shoal, these are one of my favorite species I've come across. They're basically sentient fish. And I found a picture online. I don't know if it's AI art or something, but I saved it to my phone and I'll put it up there. It's what I believe they look like, because they're basically described as kind of menacing looking fish. And they float around in suspended bubbles of water, but there's a spherical force field that keeps it in a sphere. So they, float around. It's just this talking fish with communication gear, of course. So they're speaking through a little piece of tech that translates into English or whatever species they're talking to. So they have a monopoly on FTL. And how it works is they have what they call core ships, which are basically small moon-sized spherical spacecraft, which have multi-kilometer large habitats for each client species. You don't intermingle with the other species next door, but you do have your little section. So humanity on each of these core ships has a little allotted section with a little environment. Some humans live on these core ships that travel the galaxy. They never leave the core ship, but they never see outside their 30 light year bubble. Once they leave that bubble, the windows close. You don't get to see anything. You don't get to interact where, anywhere where the core ship stops, you don't get to get off and interact. But using these core ships, you do get to go to your other colony, your other human colonies. Or next door is the Bandati species. Humanity is allowed to interact with them and trade with them. So humans are allowed to get off there. But these core ships travel, supposedly, all over the galaxy. When the story starts, humanity only knows what the shoal have told them. And our main character is Dakota, a kind of disgraced cargo pilot. That's not how she started out life, but at this point in the story, she's got a ship. She kind of dabbles in illegal trade and stuff because of some previous hardships that we learn about. And she directly becomes involved with a situation that reveals to humanity that the shoal might not actually have a monopoly on FTL, or certainly they did not come by faster than light travel as they've led on. Dakota becomes privy to some information. One of the other main characters is a shoal by the name of, he tends to take names that insult the client species because he really does not care for other species. His name is Trader in Fecal Matter of Animals. Yeah, Trader in Fecal Matter of Animals is his name at this point in the story. He changes it all the time, but for the books, that's his name. And so it's through Trader, as I call him, that we learn about the shoal. And he is high-ranking, long-lived, tens of thousands of years. He's so high-ranking that he's privy to the shoal's own secrets. Most of the shoal don't even know the origins of their species or how they became the dominant galactic species. And he has spent millennia pulling strings here and there, keeping the shoal in control, and just keeping everything running. But more importantly, keeping the shoal's secrets from other species and from the vast majority of his own species. And the story basically kicks off when a faction of humanity discovers a derelict FTL spacecraft on a barren moon that is not of shoal origin. And they need someone with head implants who can communicate with machines to try and wake it up and communicate with it. Not many people in this universe have head tech because of a situation that happened years ago where a bunch of soldiers with head tech were compromised and killed a bunch of innocents. So not many people have head tech, and those that do have head implants are basically keeping it a secret, or they are criminals on the run because it's illegal technology. So that's where Dakota comes in, because she has head tech from the past. She is brought in to kind of wake this thing up, and this is how we start to learn that the shoal did not maybe create FTL, or certainly they did not, they haven't been honest with their origins or a lot of stuff they've been telling different species. That's the majority of Stealing Light. It was pretty good, awesome space opera, very Neil Asher-esque, but not quite to that level. It has a lot of the tropes I love. Space opera, head tech that lets you communicate with machinery and computer systems, other alien species that we are interacting with, and millennia-old secrets. And one trope I like is where like mortal enemies end up in situations where they have to work together in close quarters, even though neither of them wants to, but they have similar goals and they have to work together, even though right after, you know, they're still going to try and kill each other. That happens a lot in this, where allegiances change. Dakota and Trader are pretty big enemies, but have to work together as the story continues into the next book, Nova War, which is really cool. I don't know how much I want to say. I don't want to cause spoilers, but I suppose if you're interested, maybe don't listen to the next 5 minutes. In Nova War, Dakota learns yet another secret of the shoal, which is that FTL engines have the ability to destroy suns. If you jump into the heart of a star and tweak an engine just right, it will cause the star to go nova. And this is possibly how the shoal earned a monopoly on FTL. They just destroyed, maybe, their nearest competitors in the far past. Dakota now has this knowledge, and Trader has to destroy her and anyone else who has the knowledge, because if that knowledge got back, even to the vast majority of shoal, the shoal species, it would be cataclysmic. It would unbalance the status quo, and the shoal may lose their monopoly on FTL and you know, how much they control. And in this one, we learn, you know, a galaxy is a big place. We learn that the shoal, they really only dominate one section of one spiral arm in the galaxy. So the story just gets bigger and bigger as each of these books go on. There's another species now that has FTL that the shoal have actually been waging war against for 15,000 years. And the whole time they've been afraid to detonate stars, because it would could potentially lead to their enemies learning the secret, and then they'll start detonating stars, and then we're just going to have novas going off everywhere, and nobody wins. So the story really ramps up. These other FTL ships, more of them have been found. Dakota is now wields a lot of power. So now we have various people in factions with knowledge of how to start a star to go nova. This is a disaster for the shoal, who are starting to lose the war against this other species called the emissaries. Dakota has a lot of power and influence now, but she's torn between various options and what to do. In the background of all this is another ancient entity called the Maker, who has been secreting like caches all over the galaxy of FTL tech. And the whole point is it wants species to find FTL and then directly lead to them learning how to cause novas. which will directly lead to them destroying themselves. It's kind of like the Fermi paradox. In this world, there is an entity out there since the beginning of time, seemingly, that has left treasure troves around the galaxy for species to find only because it knows this knowledge will cause them to destroy themselves. The Shoal are apparently the only species never to self-immolate, basically. And now this new species that hit the scene that they're in a war against. I don't know if any of this is making sense. I'm on to the final one, Empire of Light. Where am I? Page 166. Again, the story is just expanding, getting bigger and bigger. It's good, I'm enjoying it, but it's not to the level of Neil Asher's storytelling. But it's good, and I really like it. And it turns out there is a fourth book set a few hundred years after the conclusion of this. I don't imagine any of these characters are from the first books. Doesn't look like it. All four of these books have been on my shelves for years. It's just I haven't got around to them until I randomly chose them. So, good space opera that I'm enjoying. And as always, I have a few recently acquired things here. So first up, I have Deathwind of Vidun by, Ganji Deathwind of Vidun, I think, by T.C. Ripple. First in a trilogy, some sort of Japanese fantasy that just sounds interesting, but no plans to read it anytime soon. I'd have to find the others. It just sounded interesting, so I grabbed it. When I got home and looked it up, it still sounded interesting, so I held on to it. Stephen Baxter, When I Don't Have, Titan. Don't know much about this. I know he has an alternate timeline series about NASA. It might be that. I don't know. I'm always building up the Stephen Baxter collection. Here's another one, Flux. This I have in a, I think it's Zeely and Omnibus, which I think is 4 Stephen Baxter novels, and I believe this is in there. But I would love to get all 4 of those novels in small paperbacks and get rid of that large trade paperback I have. I have Cyclone by Greg Bear, which is a Greg Bear I don't have. Not in great shape, but cost $1. And Pat Cadigan, I have 1 or 2 of her books, but still haven't read anything. Sinners is one I know I have of hers. This is Fools, and this one is in decent shape. Don't know too much about it. And then a blast from my past. When I was a kid, or maybe a teenager, there was a briefly run show called Dinotopia, which I don't think I realized started out in books. I'm sure the books came first. I just picked this up to look through it, because it's really just pictures with some story. But it gave me such nice nostalgic feelings from the TV show. I thought, this was only $1 too. Why not pick it up? One day I'll just rip through this for the world building alone. It's basically a Jurassic Park type story. I think it's the 1800s though, and a scientist and his son wash up on some random island, and there's intelligent dinosaurs with a civilization coexisting with humans. I'm pretty sure that was a show that ran for 1 season and got canceled, but at the time I did not know it was a TV show. And then rounding out these new books is this, I think probably water-damaged box set of Caves of Steel, Naked Sun, and Robots of Dawn. 3 books I already have, but I picked it up because even though it's damaged, it's neat to have. And I figured the books inside might be in better condition than the ones I have. The only one that is the Robots of Dawn. This is a much nicer example than the one I have. Same copy, but this one's nicer. So if I don't keep these, I'll at least keep this and switch it. These are all Del Rey, but I have never seen either of these copies here, or this cover art anyway. The Naked Sun, I'm not keeping this because I prefer the copy I have. I can't reach that. I just never saw this cover art before. I'll grab it anyway. So, this is the copy I have. Who is this? Fawcett Crest. And it's just a really nice shape, and I think I like that better. Either way, it's in better shape, so I'm keeping it. And then the other one is Caves of Steel. Again, I've not seen this somehow. Just haven't come across this cover art before. So I like that, but I don't like it anywhere near as much as the copy I have. So I don't know what I'll do with these. Maybe keep the one and then just pass these along. Stick them in a free library or something. That is it. I'm going to finish up this Gary Gibson trilogy. By which point I probably won't be in the mood to continue with the standalone, but it'll be exciting to read a standalone in a universe that I'm familiar with. Pretty soon we're going to do that video with Ira and Richard, and then I will have some other best of to read after that. But as to what I read immediately after this this trilogy, I have no idea. I will stare at my bookshelf and pick something random. So until then, I'll see you in the next one.